we're on.
Okay, I think we're ready, if you can hear me.
Good. All right. I would like to welcome Jim Boyle with City Church, who will lead us in tonight's invocation.
Thank you. I invite everyone to bow your heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to gather this evening. I pray that you bestow on everyone gathered here wisdom and discernment, and allow us to work together with grace for the betterment of this city and your kingdom. And it's in your Son's name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Jim. I would like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, November 17th, 2025 to order. The city encourages you to review tonight's agenda carefully. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. While the Milton rules allow a speaker to turn in their comment card up until the clerk calls the agenda item, once the agenda item is called, no more comment cards can be accepted. Will the city clerk please call roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the November 17th regular City Council meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. As Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, if you would like to make a public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card prior to that agenda item being called. If you're representing an organization, a notarized affidavit is required stating you have the authority to speak on behalf of that organization. If you have not submitted your comment cards, please do so now. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited. Please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outburst, or dialogue with any person speaking. Anyone in violation may be asked to leave. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, as I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Pro Tem Jan Jacobus.
Present.
Councilmember Andrea Veerhoff.
Here.
Councilmember Doug Haney.
Here.
Councilmember Carol Kirkley.
Here.
And Councilmember Phil Cranmer.
Here.
And I will make a note, I have to think. Councilmember Cranmer will have to leave tonight's meeting at 7 p.m. So I wanted to make sure I got that into the record. Mayor Pro Tem, you do have a quorum. Would everyone, let me also say one thing. I'm so sorry. For the record, Mayor Jamison and Councilmember Johnson are absent. Mayor Pro Tem, you do have a quorum. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are those out of order? Isn't it? Before we get started, I'd like to extend a special recognition to the Scouts of Troop 3000. Joining us tonight, they are currently working on their citizenship in the Community Merit Badge, demonstrating a strong commitment to our community and the spirit of service. We're grateful for your attendance. Wanted to see if you'd all like to come up here and we'll take a group picture. There's a lot of them, so why don't we stand right here?
Welcome. Hello.
Hi, everybody.
How you doing?
Welcome. First person to say hello wins.
You're welcome.
Nice to see you.
Great.
Good, thank you.
Congratulations.
Next is approval. Whoops, sorry about that. Next is approval of the meeting agenda. There is no executive session this evening. Is there a motion and a second?
Mr. Mayor, make approval. Motion. We approve the meeting agenda number 25295.
Second.
We got to vote. Yeah.
You have to vote. We have a motion from Councilmember Kirkley and a second from Councilmember Hennon. That is unanimous. Okay, next is general public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any general public comments?
We do not have any general public comments, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, and that means we can skip this. Moving on to the consent agenda, will the city clerk sound the items?
Mayor Pro Tem, that first item is approval of the November 3rd, 2025 regular city council meeting minutes. It's agenda item number 25296. Our next item is approval of a concession contract agreement with Wanna Play Baseball, Inc. to provide concierge services as Bell Memorial Park. Agenda item number 25297. Our next item is approval of a franchise agreement between the City of Milton and Google Fiber Georgia LLC for installation of network facilities in the city public right-of-way. Agenda item number 25298. Our next item is approval of a professional services agreement with Terramark Land Surveying, Inc. for survey services to support a Sweet Apple Road drainage mitigation project. It's agenda item number 25299. Our next item is approval of a professional services agreement with Gresham Smith for engineering and land acquisition services for the State Route 9 widening project. It's agenda item number 25300. Our next consent item is approval of an agreement with addendum number 1 between the City of Milton and Monte Carlo Productions, Inc. for rental of themed decor for Christmas and crabapple and tree lighting event. Agenda item number 25301. Our final consent agenda item is approval of a professional services agreement with Atlas Technical Consultants, LLC for design services of hydrologic and hydraulic study of Birmingham Bridge 2, tributary number 8 of Chicken Creek. Agenda item number 25302. Mayor Pro Tem?
Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Verhoff and a second from Councilmember Kramer. Please make your votes. That is unanimous. There are no reports and presentation items or so we will move on to the public hearing. Will the city clerk please sound the item?
Mayor Pro Tem, that item is consideration of the issuance of an alcohol beverage license to Culinary Management of America doing business as Gracious Gatherings located at 12900 Arnold Road. It's Roswell, Georgia, but it is within the Milton city limits, and it's agenda item number 25303. Our Deputy City Manager, Bernadette Harville.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you, we have an alcohol beverage license application for Culinary Management of America, doing business as Gracious Gatherings. They are located at 12900 Arnold Mill Road and are applying for a consumption on-premises license for wine and malt beverages, including Sunday sales, based on their status as an approved event facility. The event space constitutes the 23,000 square foot building, the pavilion and the adjacent outdoor area and terrace seating, and does not include the original church building. The advertisements for this public hearing were ran in the Milton Herald on November 6th and 13th, and the required hearing notification signage was posted on the property as seen in the photo. Here is a map of the location for reference. The facility is near the Cox Road and Arnold Mill intersection. The hours for this establishment were set as a condition of the use permit and will have separate consideration for indoor events versus outdoor events outlined here. Also, delivery times will be limited to 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sunday through Saturday. The applicant qualifies for Sunday sales and is compliant with the requirement of 50% of its annual gross sales coming from the sale of prepared food or meals. Per Code Section 442, as part of the consideration to issue an alcohol beverage license, Council has the ability to attach stipulations or conditions to said approval. Based on some of the feedback and complaints received regarding current operations, staff has outlined a condition for consideration as follows. If at any time during the effective calendar year of the licensee pleads guilty or no contest to 2 violations of the Milton City Code, which may consist of violations of the Alcohol Code, the General City Code, or any combination thereof, a show cause hearing shall be held before City Council. At such hearing, the licensee shall be required to demonstrate why such violation should not be considered due cause for the immediate revocation of the alcoholic beverage license pursuant to Section 460 of the Milton Alcohol Code. If council would like to attach this condition, please do so during the motion for consideration of this item. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have this evening.
Are there any questions for staff?
Bernadette, those conditions are obviously there for a reason. Can we summarize perhaps what was the cause of those conditions, what the complaints have been coming in?
To my knowledge, it has been complaints about noise and lighting, and I have staff members from the other departments if you'd like to have a little more information. I have, I believe, police and community development here this evening. I think I have here.
Yeah, I think we need a full explanation.
Okay.
Hello, Chief.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
So as far as the calls that we've received out there, we've received 3 calls about the noise. We've also received, city staff as a whole has received a multitude of emails from surrounding residents about the lighting, different colored lighting, orange, green, red, blue, purple, you name it. So most of the complaints that we've received have been through email communication. The 3 calls we did get were all simultaneous on the same day, back in May when they had an outdoor event going on in the pavilion. And that is about it as far as our response from PD reference to issues out there.
But
A lot of emails with ComDev and code enforcement and everybody worked together, kind of, trying to tackle the issues and get them fixed.
Are the emails in reference to other events occurring on other dates?
Other dates with different colored lighting and then different noise complaints, people talking in the parking lot, stuff like that. It's a multitude of things, but nothing outside of email after that one day. So a lot of the calls, the issue we had when I was researching this today was a lot of the calls are coming from Roswell residents, and it goes to Roswell dispatch, and then they patch it over to our dispatch, which makes it incredibly complicated for us to research the origin of the calls on our end to figure out the details that were told to the dispatcher initially. I'm obviously more than happy to reach out to Roswell. Typically, they take 2-3 days to research call histories and stuff like that, but it's without getting all the details of the original caller, they just transfer it over to Alpharetta 911, and then we get sent out there. So there may be more, but they weren't logged in our CAD system as complaints tied to that address.
Let me
makes
ask the
sense.
question maybe then this way. Have we dispatched officers because of noise?
Yes,
And how many times?
that day.
One time.
There was 3 calls. And
Okay, so one time on that date back in May.
yes, ma'am.
And since that time, to your knowledge, we have not, and do we know whether there have been emails that went to Roswell that didn't come to us about noise?
Emails, I think, are going the right place. They're all
Okay.
coming to us.
Okay.
Between Diana Wheeler, myself, code enforcement, we've all been in the email chain, Rob Del Ross, and we've all tackled separate issues in our separate divisions best we can. So
When you've been dispatched or anyone else has gone out there, have they been in violation of the noise ordinance?
So by the time the officers got there on May 31st, the noise had ceased. And they didn't observe anything, so they didn't pull out a sound meter. There was no reason to. There was no music playing or anything like that, which happens a lot when we get noise complaints, right? They see police pull up and it stops. I don't know if that was the instance here, but over the years, we've had a lot of experience with noise complaints with Matilda's and some other venues around here. So all of our sergeants are equipped with calibrated decibel meters that we use, and they know how to use them, and they're well informed of the limitations of levels. So
Okay, so basically 6 months ago, the issue. All right.
that I can document, or that I can.
6 months ago that we know of.
Yes,
And
correct.
because timing wise, whatever, they weren't out of compliance with any noise ordinances that we're aware of.
Correct. Not that we observed.
I think that Rob might have some more updated information based on codes and emails.
Okay,
Okay.
good, thank you.
And thank you. And I disagree. I don't think people slow down when they see cops. That does not happen.
Good evening. I don't have much to add from a code enforcement perspective. We are aware of noise and light complaints. There are a couple of other conditions attached to the use permit for the event facility that they have not been complying with that we're aware of and have told them multiple times. Most notably, the sandwich board sign must be posted at one of the entrance exits on Cox Road stipulating one of the following messages: church event tonight, or rural event. That's important because this is a complicated issue. The church itself is attributed to a noise maximum in the code, not tied to their use permit. The use permit for the church doesn't have a noise component to it. The use permit for the rural event facility does. It's more strict than the church, which is why we've asked them to indicate in a sign whether it's a rural event or church event, which they have not been doing. One other note, we are aware of some new, relatively new complaints that arrived this morning that we're investigating. There has been some claims that they have not been following the traffic management requirement per their use permit for hiring off-duty officers for events for more than 100 participants, as well as some concerns that their parking lot lighting itself may not be night sky compliant. We're looking into that as well.
Rob, what are the penalties for violating the light ordinance, the capacity of not having an officer, and for, what was the first one you said? It was lights, capacity.
Event
Oh, the
signs.
event
Sandwich board.
So I'm going to defer to the city attorney. My understanding is that any violation of the city code is subject to up to $1,000 per citation. That's based on the discretion of the judge.
Yeah, I'll agree. I mean, it depends how we're going to approach enforcement, whether we're going to approach it through a quasi-criminal matter, which would be a typical code violation, or we're going to approach it by way of injunction. Typically, what you'd see in a city would be quasi-criminal, which is what Mr. Del Ross just said, and that would be up to $1,000
per citation.
But again, we're talking about a citation being issued. We're talking about a hearing in court, vindicating our interest that way.
And one of those bullets that was just shared is that if any time during the effective calendar year of the license, the licensee pleads guilty or no contest to 2 violations, would these constitute those violations?
Not until there's actually an adjudication. So the idea would be if there was one infraction that resulted in either a plea or a finding of guilt, that would be sort of one ding against the regulated entity. And then upon that second one of either a plea or a finding of guilt, then that would force a hearing in front of you. Because at that point, assuming that you had approved this, that would mean that now a trigger in their alcohol license has been hit. And so that would force a hearing. They would come before you, and then really it's in the nature of what's called sort of a show cause hearing. Your alcohol code contemplates that you can revoke an alcohol license upon due cause being shown. And upon that trigger being hit, the second plea or finding of guilt, then the position of the city is going to be, we believe now you need to you lose your license, talk us out of it. Mitigation.
Is they're operating under a temporary alcohol license today?
That's correct.
Is there an expiration date to that?
The initial license expires 90 days from issuance, which was issued, I believe, on September 10th. So we're about 60 days, a little more than 60 days in. Once you hit the 90 days, or just before you hit the 90 days, if they don't have a license in place, they can apply for a 60-day extension.
Have we had any calls since the temporary license has been issued?
Don't know the answer to that. That was on September 10th. I know that the police said that they didn't have any calls since
Not
May.
since May.
I don't know about emails.
Can you share what their response has been to the light complaints, like all the multicolor lights?
I'm going to phone a friend.
So based on pictures and email traffic, we're aware of a, I'm not sure how to describe it, an LED system that rotates colors based on times of the year. For example, they were red, white, and blue themed in July. They were orange tinted in Halloween, based on communication with the church leaders, that system has been shut down as of October 25th.
Okay.
What was their response to the fact that they hadn't been doing the sandwich boards?
They haven't acknowledged it.
Have they had time to acknowledge it?
Yes.
Guessing we have a fair bit of public comment. Is that a true statement?
Is there any other questions for
I may
staff?
after public comment.
Yeah, let's get to the public comment.
Our first public comment is Matilda Weiss. She does not wish to speak, but does say that she's in opposition. I would like to invite Samantha Evans to the podium, please.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you again tonight. Serving alcohol at this property will make a bad situation worse. Regardless if the applicant is a tenant, Gracious Gatherings, the landlord, Ebenezer Church, has not proven that they can responsibly comply with their operating conditions and have made no effort to enforce them. There is an attitude at this property that they can do whatever they want with disregard to the city's conditions or courtesy for neighbors. Please recall all of the time we invested in May of this year discussing and negotiating use conditions for the rural event permit. Hours were spent with city council members and between church and neighbors going over what would be allowed and what would not be allowed. A clear one-pager was made for both church conditions and rural event conditions that were shared with all parties. No one involved can say they didn't know the rules. By June 2nd, multiple violations occurred. A large event with hundreds of people and speakers blasting amplified music well into the 70 dBA range at our property line took place. There was no signage to indicate if it was a church or rural event and no police to help with the traffic. I believe this is the event that the officer was speaking of. Trust me, we will call the police every time. We will try to get to Milton Police directly. We are sending emails, our neighbors are sending emails. We will call the police if that's what it takes for you to know that this is an ongoing incident. At first, we tried to appeal directly to the church leadership, but it quickly became clear that they had no intention in changing their behavior. On top of that, they were unapologetic and frankly quite rude. Neighbors called the police and reached out to the city, who issued warnings. The city's warnings also included explicit review of the night sky illumination regulations, which prohibit neon lighting and allow only full cutoff fixtures to with shields to prevent stray light trespassing across property boundaries or up into the sky. After several warnings have been issued, still for the next 5 months, we continue to see neon lighting that stays on literally all night. I know that they said they turned it off on October 24th, October 25th. I hope you saw my video I sent to you today on November 6th when they had another event with that neon lighting. It often corresponds to holidays for months like red, white, and blue leading up to 4th of July and orange for Halloween. And whoever is paying for an event can also pick a color. One wedding had a green theme. The church has received several warnings and may turn it off for a short time only for it to come back. We used to have the little white church on the corner and a single-family ranch home on several acres across from us, both dark at night. Now it looks like a Las Vegas casino, which you can see from inside our home. We're not talking about a few spotlights with colors. This thing is glowing. You can probably see it if you're flying on an airplane overhead, maybe in space. I know it sounds dramatic, but I hope you saw what it actually looks like. I put together a YouTube video with pictures and video that I wasn't able to play here in the session tonight, but which clearly demonstrates how intrusive this lighting and sound is to the community over this period of the last 5 months since they opened their event center. I will keep it online and I will share it with anyone who would like to see what we're experiencing firsthand. Rock concerts and bands have performed live with amplified music in the pavilion on multiple occasions, with recorded readings into the mid-60s and mid-70s dBA at our property line. The church has been made clear of the conditions. It should not exceed 55 dBA for church events and 45 dBA for rural events at their property line, though we never know which one is happening because they don't put out the required sandwich boards. The violations are reported, they are warned, and they continue in willful defiance. We're very concerned about increased noise coming from people consuming alcohol at this property and the potential safety risk when those people get into their cars to drive into an already busy intersection. Do you know how many teens are driving right at this intersection to attend practice and games at Legacy Park? Or families out for a walk crossing the street at Cox and Ebenezer Roads? You risk putting them in unnecessary danger by serving alcohol at parties across the street. This is a suburban residential area with homes and people much closer to their property than facilities like Little River Farms. Experience shows us that we can expect a disregard for compliance and courtesy, and that in all likelihood, incidents will continue here. Why would you grant the privilege of more responsibility at this property? Selling alcohol is not critical to running their business. Your decision tonight will also set a precedent that changes the entire fabric of the area and what's allowed for future development. We currently live next to a school, recreation fields, a driving range, and a church. These are family-friendly businesses that shut down at reasonable hours, and most don't menace the surrounding neighbors. None of these places serve alcohol. Frankly, it's a dangerous place to do so and would not be appreciated by residents who live within hundreds of feet. On November 6th, there was an event with people inside the event center. The doors are propped open. They're going from the parking lot to the pavilion. They're whooping and hollering. They're congregating in the parking lot. It was 9 o'clock on a Thursday night. We have work and school in the morning.
Time's
It's
expired.
just ridiculous. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, could we get that speaker's name and address just for the record?
My apology. Can you come back and give us your name and address, please?
It's Samantha Evans at 507 Etris Court.
Mayor Pro Tem, I invite Wendy Williamson to the podium.
Hi, good evening. I'm Wendy Williamson, and I live at 12899 Etris Walk. Thank you for allowing us to voice our continued concerns over the rural event facility being operated in our neighborhood by Ebenezer Church. Our backyard is just a few lots down from the new event facility. Honestly, when all this came up, we had no idea if this was going to be a true problem or not. After the facility was approved for operation at the May 19th council meeting, we were quickly jolted into the reality of what this was going to mean for our homes the very next weekend. I arrived home on Sunday afternoon to hear very loud noise in my driveway. I initially thought it was music coming from my neighbor's backyard, then to realize it was coming from the new event facility when I began to hear amplified voices talking over the loudspeaker. We could not believe how loud and disruptive it was, even on our back screen porch. We have invested heavily in our backyard with a pool, nice landscape, and outdoor seating area, hoping to enjoy the peace and quiet of our home just like everyone else. I immediately reached out to Pastor Glenn with an email telling him of the situation and asking for his consideration of how this amplified noise is affecting the neighbors. I had not gotten involved before, but I sent a very respectful email to him just asking for a dialogue. And even though we have many issues with having a rural event facility so close to our homes, including how it was originally proposed versus what it has actually turned out to be, our main concern at this point is regarding the amplified noise. We are asking the church to be considerate neighbors, just like we would all be to each other if noise was too loud coming from any of our properties. We would turn it down, and to at least abide by the guidelines that were set by the city at the May 19th council meeting. I shared my email with several of the council members, and I very much appreciate your response and support of the outline guidelines that you emailed me back. In the following email exchange that happened with Pastor Glenn, it became apparent that the church seems to have no intention of taking responsibility for following the guidelines and being considerate to us as neighbors. On August 21st, Pastor Glenn wrote to me, quote, "There has been much confusion over the decibel limits for church events. For outside events, which would rarely, if ever, happen on our site, the limit at the property line is 45 decibels. After getting mixed signals from Milton City Ordinance, whether our church events would be limited to 45, 55, 75, or 85 decibels at the property line, the city responded to me yesterday and said our church event limit at the property line is 55 decibels. I do not know what that sounds like," end quote. First of all, I do not understand why he said he was getting mixed signals from the city of Milton. The guidelines were clearly outlined in documentation from the May 19th council meeting. Second, he says that outside events would rarely, if ever, happen on their site. There have been multiple outside events already, and many more would come if an alcohol permit is granted. And I know my calls may not have been registered, but I called after May at multiple times when it was exceeding the decibel limit. Plus, there is definitely subjection being used as to what is an Ebenezer Church event. There have been multiple events held at the facility by outside organizations, whether it be other churches, schools in the area, etc., that may be faith-based events, but they are not Ebenezer Church events. These are outside organizations using the facility, and in our opinion, should have to adhere to the outside event guidelines. But the most concerning statement in this email is that he had no idea what 55 decibels sounds like at their property line. I was shocked to hear this. If the church has any intention of adhering to the guidelines outlined by the city, how have they not done sound testing at their property line so that they can inform their church and outside users as to how loud they can set the amp to adhere to the guidelines? They have clearly rented out the facility and given no limitations to the sound system, which is obvious because of how it sounds in our backyards. It should be the church's responsibility to understand, measure, and enforce the sound guidelines that have been outlined by the city. We are asking that the city please take the church's blatant disregard of current guidelines into consideration, as the church is now asking for yet another permit for alcohol to be served, which would obviously open up the doors for even more events to be hosted, along with even further noise and safety concerns for us as
Time's
members.
expired.
Please vote no to the alcohol permit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem James Williamson is in opposition but does not wish to speak. I next invite Lori Carey to the podium. I'm sorry, in opposition. Okay, thank you. Next is Jeff Grant.
Good evening. I moved here in August, so I'm new to the area. Was excited to move to the community. I moved to this area for
Excuse
the
me.
community.
I need your name and address, please.
Yes, sir. Jeff Grant, 511 Eatris Court, Roswell, Georgia. Thank you. Moved to the community. I was excited about the neighborhood. I was excited about the safety of the neighborhood. I'm a son of a pastor, Methodist Church. I was excited also being close to a Methodist church. When I moved here, I didn't realize how big the entertainment center was. First introduction was loud music, really loud. I heard it inside the house. I was really shocked, very shocked, to be honest. The house is well built here in Georgia. I could hear it through. That shocked me. You open the doors, you could really hear it. It was extremely loud. My neighbors give good details about the decibels. I didn't have the decibel reader, but it did catch me from surprise. The other side was the lighting. The lighting it's no extreme. It's like Vegas. It really is. I go to bed with my wife. We usually have the blinds open. We shut the blinds. I have to shut the blinds to go to sleep. And we're talking 9, 10 o'clock at night. It is a disruption. So only here since August. It's new for me. But I just get concerned about where this goes from here. 3 months experience. What's this look like? More permits, access to alcohol, selling alcohol. What's that look like for the parking lot? I have a 15-year-old son. I have an 11-year-old son as well that play at Legacy. I'm concerned about their safety as well. So I wanted to show up today. Thank you for your service and also just express my opinion.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next comment card is from Ryan Evans. In opposition, does not wish to speak, but I did ask for it to be read into the record. Please do not approve this alcohol license. Ebenezer's actions have spoken much louder than their words over the last 6 months. They have shown over and over and over again, despite many warnings from Milton Code Enforcement, to refuse to follow noise level, night sky, and event signage guidelines that were painfully negotiated. Please don't approve more privileges that put our suburban area at risk for drunk drivers and more noise violations. Next, I invite Paul Crum to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Paul Crum, and my address is 5267 Amherst Drive, and that is Peachtree Corners, Georgia. I am the CEO of Gracious Gatherings. And I am a little surprised this evening in that we keep talking about Ebenezer, but then we talk about the Pardue Center, a little bit different. And then we have this day where we had this immense amount of noise, and there was. And it was mostly praise and worship. That's the amazing thing. It was not us. It was an actual church function. Matter of fact, talk about signs. There were signs everywhere that said barbecue, annual barbecue that they have every year. Matter of fact, they had nothing to do with the Pardue Center except for they were using the outside area, which the church is right there. So of course they're going to do that. As far as the lights go, we were told that the lights were shooting the wrong direction. Those lights have been eliminated and have been eliminated for some time now. So I hear that there's these videos, the only lights we have that are multicolored now are inside. And those lights are used mostly for weddings. Now, the thing is, it's interesting, is that the noise that I keep hearing about is consistent in one day. And again, we had nothing to do with it. And there's someone here that represents church. And like I said, that was their big barbecue that they have every year. But the other thing is that we don't put out these sandwich boards when we have the AA meetings or when we have the sex survivor meetings that we have every week, or when we have the grief recovery meetings. That's the only time that we have people in the parking lot that we don't put the signs up. Other than that, they're up every time. And that's something that we make sure of on both entrances. The other thing that makes it a little more difficult is that we don't, we've had 60 days with actually a little bit longer than that, with an temporary alcohol license. We hadn't had one issue, not one incident, not anything like that, you know. And so one of the things that we're beginning to look at is that we also, part of our program is that we have a welfare to work program where we train and develop people in the culinary industry. In that, they're also taught how to look at someone and say, are they intoxicated? Do we serve them anymore? Have they had more than 2 drinks? Because that's pretty much our limit anywhere. We also don't serve alcohol. We serve beer and wine. And we did that intentionally so that we wouldn't have any type of issues. So like I said, I continue to hear that. What I also know is that we have yet to have an event with over 100 people. Most of our events have been 60 people or less. And so when we talk about traffic control, the one thing that has been done is we've had off-duty officers that we've hired through Milton, even when it was less than 100 people. They're there every week, and they can testify to that. So one of the things that we have begun to do is develop a code within itself. Every single thing that we've been asked to do, we've done. As far as the Pardue Center goes, we haven't had a single complaint, not us. And like I said, the decibel, we are very clear on what our decibel meter is. It's 45, period. And we have any kind of noise. Matter of fact, one of the things that we have done is we no longer allow, nor have we for quite a while after the incident with the church, we don't allow any type of amplified guitars, voices, anything under the pavilion. It has to be
1 minute.
It has to be controlled. And actually, we don't even allow people to go out or use that area past 8 o'clock, which is something that we didn't have to do. So we're actually trying to do everything that we can to provide a place that will allow us to continue to train people, continues to allow these meetings that we've allowed. And I think those are sometimes looked down at within itself. You know, the community sees AA meetings here. Maybe they don't like that. I'm not sure. Or maybe sex survivor meetings. I don't know. But what I do know is that I believe that we are doing everything that we can do. And like I said, we've never had a single complaint. Gracious Gatherings has never had a single complaint in the 24 years that we've been doing this. So with that, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I invite Susan Shanahan to the podium.
Hi, I'm Susan Shanahan. My address is street address 895 Lackey Road, and I'm just in support.
Okay. Ruthie Ellis is in opposition but does not wish to speak. And the final comment card for this is William Humphrey.
Thank you. My name is William Humphrey, and I'm with Ebenezer Church and the Pardue Center, and I think I'm probably familiar to a few of you all. I would like to address two or three of the things I heard early on about violations. I agree that there were some light violations. We have solved that problem. We've had those lights disconnected, so they won't be a problem again. We had a situation where again, we did not have an officer directing traffic. We had filed with the city and asked for off-duty officers. They got no takers. I called as late as Saturday night to get an officer, and just no takers. So we're supposed to get police officers. We understand that. But if they're not available, we're looking now at maybe hiring some school officers or something, but I guess that's a violation, but if I try and there's nobody available, I don't know what to do. So I wanted to explain that a little bit. Also, the sound, I've heard a great deal about that tonight. We now have a strict rule. There is no amplified outside sound, period. So that will not be an issue again. And again, I've heard these comments, and I just wanted to address those. And I'm happy to take a question if anybody has one.
That'll be later.
Ma'am?
I think that's later. And right, later.
Right, that'll be
Yeah.
based upon the council actually
if we
asking
have questions, I
specific
think we have to
comments.
end this part.
This is more just individuals coming up and giving their general opinion. There may be questions later.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, that concludes public comment on agenda item number 25303.
The public hearing is now closed. Is there any council discussion?
I have a question. Counselor, can we extend the temporary permit?
My initial thought, unresearched, is that you can. I don't even know that that would require council action. That may be a staff action. Yeah, I would think as well. So I think the short answer is yes, council member.
Okay. So I'm going to jump right in. Look, I don't think anybody's not telling the truth. But it is confusing, having done tons and tons of permitting issues in my career, when you have something that's either church or rural event, what's the code for that night? If they make a mistake with signage or whatever, you're not at fault for misreading it, but at the same time, the lights sound horrendous and not in keeping with our so-called rural character. So there's a lot of things that need to be worked out. The situation here is the permit for Gracious Gathering is literally the leverage to get the church as a whole to be a good neighbor. And if you're just given that permit, then I think that there could be an ongoing issue that doesn't get resolved. I would like to see these things worked out underneath a temporary permit, because I don't think that stipulations on a regular permit really helps us out. There's too much red tape with that, too much adjudication. So I would like, personally, for us to give you another shot with the temporary permit, and you say these things have been worked out and it's not Gracious Gatherings, well then the church itself, while there are some opportunities that are by right, needs to think about how it can be more sensitive to the neighbors. And I think that gives you time to work that out. I can't vote for a permanent, well, it's never permanent because it can be revoked.
Every year.
Every year, and that's what a lot of people don't understand, but I don't think we need to go through a year and have all this drama. But I can't in good conscience tonight vote for it with this level of unhappiness, even if some of it is miscentered. It doesn't go exactly with Gracious Gathering. I just think the whole entity needs to be a gracious neighbor. And if the neighbors are in error at any given time, that should be pointed out. But I think a re-up of the temporary permit is a pretty good idea. What do y'all think?
I'll give my 2 cents.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts too.
I 100% agree.
Okay.
I think there's an opportunity to improve upon the operations at the church. I would like for this decision to be more fact-based. So to Samantha and neighbors, call the police. If there is a violation, call the police. And to our police department and city staff, if they're in violation, there ought to be a citation. Let's use the data, right, to drive these decisions.
Real quick before you get your next thought, though, along those lines, is there any way for us to give residents is there a phone number they can call so they don't get routed from Roswell to Alpharetta to Milton? The next thing you know, so much time has passed that it's almost an irrelevant phone call.
There's a non-emergency number to the Alpharetta 911 center. I'll make sure we get that out to them if they don't have it already.
And that'll fast track getting somebody out there if there is an issue.
Fast track, no. It will get to the Alpharetta center. Obviously, higher priority calls will get fast tracked. It's just the way it is.
And I'd like the church to get the information, the feedback immediately, because complaints can be accurate, complaints can be in error, and we need to be able to figure these things out in real time.
Yeah, and I meant fast track as opposed to what it currently is. Clearly not prioritized over real emergencies.
Yeah, and I apologize. I didn't realize we were having the issue with the Roswell PSAP. So I'm sure we'll be able to address that.
Okay. Sorry, you want to finish your
No,
next
I
point?
mean, that was the bottom line. Look, there's a window of time, right? We can extend, is my understanding, 60 days, the temporary. I think that gives an opportunity to both parties, mainly to the church, to fine tune those operations, be a good neighbor, be in the spirit of what it was presented to us back in May. Let's log the complaints, both city staff, what complaints we do get, let's have a formal log, and also the data of citations. And let's come back in 60, 90 days and let the data decide.
I would really like it if the church, when the church is having its events, if they could hire an off-duty police officer, because having an officer present will help us. We'll have better information from an impartial source of exactly what happened and what kind of event it was and whether it met the criteria. So if the church would pay for a off-duty police officer on those nights, I'm looking past the chief because he's thinking, Carol, we really don't have this. But maybe something good will work out. But then we really solve the issues. We know exactly what's happening. And that would be very helpful. So thank you.
Ken, do we vote to defer and then leave it to Ken to to Steve to extend the,
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, on the last part of that question, but I'd like to get an assessment of the council as to your vision for what this looks like. And here's what I mean. Let's assume that there is a motion to defer for some period of time, say it's 60 days, et cetera. Would the expectation be that it comes back in its present posture, that is an application already having completed the public hearing process, or a decision only, or would it be your expectation it comes back for another public hearing? I think those are very important concepts for purposes of what this looks like when it comes back.
I would suggest the latter. I think we all want to understand that this is a little more copacetic between the neighbors and the church and gracious gatherings.
I think a public hearing, because I want to know what happens from now until our next meeting. How many times have the police been called? What has happened during that time frame?
So it sounds like that you want to hear from the feedback from the community as well. So we would advertise it for another public hearing. There would be a public hearing. We would waive the cost because it's a city-initiated public hearing and have it back in the same posture as it
Yeah, I would
was.
suggest we want to hear that these issues have been resolved. They're being a good neighbor and they've earned the right to have another step in that direction.
I don't want to get ahead of you. And so if that's the motion you make, at least it helps educate us is what your expectation is when it comes.
Can I ask a question around the off-duty police officers? What is the size, the minimum size event that requires an off-duty police officer to be there?
100.
100. And the one gentleman said none of the events have been over 100. Did I hear that right?
That's what he
said.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. But it sounds like they did try to secure an off-duty police officer, but the
Thank you.
So that begs a question. If we have a police officer, I guess because they're off duty, they're not able to then check whether or not the decibel limit is okay?
Of course they can.
Have we had?
Can
any
we put that,
officers-
sorry, Carol, quick, can we put that on the church then? That if you have an officer there, like self-police, so the neighbors aren't having to do it?
We can deal with that from inside the police department as well.
Okay.
Well, it could be that the officers didn't think there was an issue. We have to consider all sides of it.
We've only been there twice, as far as
Okay.
I can tell.
Okay.
Thank you.
And when was, sorry, you said that you now have a rule against amplified sound outside at all. When did that go into effect?
That has been in effect for, as soon as we, officers will call that issue.
Mayor Pro Tem, I think the speaker needs to come up because there's anybody watching this cannot hear.
Come to the front, please.
And so while you're walking up, I think I summarized what you were just saying, or at least the heart of my question. So you're suggesting that when that May event happened, that there were 3 noise complaints made. Since that May event, there's been 0 outside
You need to state your name and
amplification?
address
Yes,
again.
again, it's Paul Crum, address to, that's fine, 5267 Amherst Drive, Peachtree Corners, Georgia. Yes, that is correct. We've not even had 100 people at the services. So we've had no reason to have officers, okay? But yet we have.
Right,
tried to be
I'm
a-
asking specifically about the amplified sound though. So since May, there's been 0 outside amplified sound?
There has been one incident where the inside somehow carried to that. In other words, the speaker system outside had not been disconnected yet. So we had about a 5-minute situation where we realized, oh man, it's playing outside too. So we were able to cut that off. The engineers disconnected at that point in time, and that was just a few days later after that.
Councilmember, I think the issue is the confusion between the two uses. You could clearly see from some of
Thank
the videos that there's amplified sound outside, but it's not necessarily in relation to what's going on inside with the event center. I think that's something that we as staff need to nail down.
Okay.
Right.
Do I have a motion to defer?
All right,
Yes.
Yeah.
And we,
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we defer the agenda item number 25-301 to a future date. Counselor, do I need any other?
303.
303, I'm sorry. Do I need anything else in that?
public hearing?
Just that it returns by way of a notice public hearing.
Okay, and it returns by way of a noticed public hearing.
Second? No.
I have a motion from Councilmember Crookley and a second from Councilmember Kramer. Please vote. Anybody but me. That motion passes.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, just for purposes of the record, I just want you to know we did hear sort of a 60-day time frame. So to the gallery and everybody watching, that's probably what we're going to hit on.
Yes.
Yep. Agreed.
There are no zoning agenda items, so moving on to unfinished business. Will the city clerk please sound that item?
Mayor Pro Tem, that item is consideration of an ordinance of the City of Milton to amend the Unified Development Code, Article 10, related to the Milton Trail Blueprint. It's agenda item number 25293. Deputy Community Development Director, Rob Del Ross.
Good evening, everyone. Let me 2 seconds to pull up my presentation. Thank you. The purpose of tonight's item is to update a map in the Unified Development Code, a UDC 10.7.3.A, commonly referred to as the blueprint map. This is a very similar presentation to the one you heard at our work session back in June 2025. There were two primary points of feedback that we received from you in June that I'll bring attention to during my presentation. One resulted in a change to the map that I'm recommending, and the other one will come up in next steps. This item and the next item under new business work in conjunction. The first item contains the text amendment to remove the existing map and allow us to approve a new map via resolution. The second item under new business is the resolution itself approving the new map. The recommendation you see before you tonight is the result of many discussions and hours of hard work from our Milton Trails Advisory Committee, commonly referred to as MTAC, and I wanted to acknowledge two of the members who are in our audience, Chairperson Suzanne Bach and Committee Member Keisha Asher. First, I'm going to review the history and background of the blueprint map, then show you the proposed changes, summarize our public outreach we've gotten to date, and then wrap up with the proposed next steps and any discussion we may have. The Milton Trails Blueprint Map was originally adopted in 2007 as the Trail Plan. It was last updated in 2020 as part of the Blueprint and Community Trail Prioritization Plan. There are two primary purposes of this map. The first is to indicate to private development where they would be responsible for ultimately building a portion of the trail along their frontage. Second purpose is to serve as an aspirational plan to indicate where we are headed in the future and serve as a basis for future transportation planning updates, as well as potential T-SPLOST project list development. One of the major changes since 2020 has been the green space bond land acquisition. MTAC began discussing updates to this map and other code areas in 2023. We talked about a lot of different potential changes. We ultimately settled on updating the map itself, and the unanimous approval motion to forward the map you see tonight to council was made on June 26th after receiving input from you at that work session. Map on the screen. This is the map as currently exists in UDC 1073A. Appendix A, Milton Trails Blueprint, formerly known as the Milton Trail Edge of Pavement EOP Type and Material Map. The next figure I'm going to show you outlines the changes. So this figure in purple shows segments that we are proposing to add to the map tonight. The segments in red are recommended removal from the already existing map. The red lines are one of the changes as a result of the feedback we received from you in June work session. Due to the fact that the property is Fulton County Schools, not Milton's. Actually, the original 2020 public outreach recommended removing them. We're incorporating that recommendation and adding that into our recommendations for you tonight. Staff reviewed those deletions with MTAC, and we agree that they should be removed. This last figure shows the new map with the additions in pink and the red lines removed. This final map shows you what the UDC figure would look like if the changes as proposed are adopted tonight. As part of MTAC's discussion to propose changes to the map, we reached out to the public in February 2025 to show them these recommendations. We received 140 submissions, visually represented on the screen as green dots. You'll notice that we got pretty good coverage around the city, a couple of clusters and a couple of subdivisions, but good representation throughout the entire city. I've included on the next couple of slides answers to the two most relevant questions we answered in that survey. We discussed that survey at length in June, but I'm not going to go through that same discussion here tonight. I did want to point out two questions. Question D, which segments on that map, which of those pink lines do you strongly support? We gave residents the option to choose more than one of these. You'll notice ranging from 6 in connection G up to 41 for connection E. These are strong relative to the numbers that I'm going to show you on the next screen. Question E, which segments do you not support? These numbers are relatively low, ranging from 1 to 11. The next slide summarizes the most commonly heard themes we received from the public outreach. We gave residents a chance to give us free response, their general reaction to some of these recommendations. One concern that came up repeatedly that I didn't want to address tonight, and that's the top bullet on the screen. Any segment on this map that is advanced ultimately into design as a capital project will have its own concept development and public outreach process, which could include modifications to the side of the road that the trail is on, as well as proposed pedestrian crossings that would accommodate the existing network and the logical destinations. All of public works projects are inherently controversial because 99% of the time we are unable to make any substantial improvements to the city's infrastructure within the existing right-of-way. I do want to repeat one more time, any segment on this map that is advanced into design as a capital project will have its own concept development and public outreach process, which could include modifications to the side of the road that the trail's on, as well as proposed pedestrian crossings. We recognize that impacting people's yards can be difficult. We recognize we're often dealing with sentimental things like trees, landscaping, fences, anything that they have in their front yard that may have value to them. We generally, where we can, given a choice between a side of the road that is front yards for one set of residences and another side of the road that is backyards for another set of residents, we would generally, when we can, err towards impacting the backyards instead of the front yards. As far as next steps goes, staff has been working with MTAC over the last 6 months to develop a package of trail connections to use some of the existing T-SPLOST funding. This was a second question from you in a June work session. You wanted us to start diving into what those priorities ultimately would look like. We're making good progress on that. The 3 focus areas we have been using to kind of dial in some of those priorities are shown on the screen. Access to large subdivisions, access to parks and schools, and finishings and filling some gaps for some existing 2 to 3 mile loops. We are making good progress on this list as recently as our most recent meeting last week, and expect to be able to start sharing those recommendations with you in early 2026. That concludes my presentation. Open to any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff?
I just want to review some things. So having gone over this at length with Mr. Krokoff, I just want to underscore, because I got numerous questions on this in the last couple days. So the adoption, it just becomes the official guidance. It doesn't lock us into anything. The new subdivisions, et cetera, they're locked into having to do sidewalks, et cetera. But everything else has a public outreach component if in fact we wanted to advance to the development of a trail from this plan. There's a public outreach and a public presentation and input in the whole thing. So nothing is a foregone conclusion. Is that your understanding?
That's correct. And even before a public outreach and concept development for a specific project,
Right.
there would need a budget identified and a line item for any of these projects that would also have its own separate outreach process.
And unlike many years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, when surveyors were dispatched into people's horse pastures and front yards and other things like that to get a sense of where a trail could go. If in the future we do have a trail down a road with residences, because where else would you have them? Well, maybe in the green spaces, but it would be in the right of way. We're not talking about any takings, correct?
Where possible, we would, yes, look towards minimizing those impacts, keeping it in right away where possible. I don't feel that it's safe to commit future councils to not acquiring easement or right of way if it's needed to build a segment.
Just to clear up that answer a little bit more, this ordinance specifically does not impose any property requirements. It's the existing UDC language is controlling, and the only place where there may be required right of way would be associated with new subdivisions or developments that are going on within a half mile of schools or our active parks.
Right.
That now, to move over to what Rob was saying, there is the potential as we're planning trails at some point that it may branch over towards private property, and at that point we would have the whole public input hearing process.
Right. Good. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
And what you're putting forth has been approved by MTAC and staff, everybody's in alignment?
Yes, sir, multiple times.
It's a working document. I am finally comfortable with it. All right.
Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We do, Mayor Pro Tem. I would like to invite Jim Garrett to the podium, please.
Good afternoon. Apologize for my voice, which, by the way, you have an awesome voice. I should have just wrote all this down and let you talk for me.
Thank you. You're my favorite person here tonight.
You hear it again back there.
My name is Jim Garrett. Live at 790 Hickory Flat Road. So if you're right, I'll tell you what that is. It's just to the right of the church. So I live next door to the church. There's a fire station, church, my house, and Doug's, and then 7 acres. So we just eat at 7 acre all the time. So I came last week when the trail committee was here to just voice a couple of concerns, because this is something we just heard about. And in fact, I probably talked to all the people I know in Milton, and nobody knew anything about any of this. So that's the first thing I would say. And the fact that I just saw a number that said 140 people were responded to something tells me that either someone's not communicating or no one cares. And so I don't know why you would spend several $1 million on a project nobody seems to be that enthused about, but that's a whole other topic. So what I was confused about is, why was there something on the agenda to approve a map that's not an approvable map based on what I just heard? And then last week when I was here, I was kind of shocked when I asked a few questions like, what's this trail for? Is it for horses? Is it for people? Is it for bicycles? And nobody could really give me a straight answer. They still weren't sure, is it going to be a natural trail with agate, or is it going to be asphalt, or is it going to be concrete? And that sort of is dictated by how it's used. So to me, the whole project seems to not be very well titled or communicated to the community, because we don't know anything about it. So a lot of other people who would be impacted, but I specifically was concerned about them looking to put this trail on the north side of Hickory Flat because of a number of issues. And I was told right here in this meeting that it would not involve taking down 150-year-old trees, which I have 2 of them. But yet the map still shows the trail on my side of the road. When there's if they decide to do it, because my property backs up to Birmingham Park, there's a much better corridor that would go on the power lines off of 372. There would be less traffic. And the biggest concern that I have is the fire department leaves 6 to 7 times a day. And the minute they come out, turn on their sirens, cars are hitting the median or the right of way, which would be a hazard to people walking on a sidewalk. There's over 100 Amazon trucks between 9:30 and 10:30 in the morning. There's lots of 18-wheelers, which they're not even supposed to go up and down Hickory Flat, but they do. There's lots of big concrete trucks. So it's just way too much traffic for, a trail or a
1 minute.
sidewalk. So I think there's just a lot of questions that seem to be unresolved to vote on something that's just not been made very clear to the community. So that's my only comments. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, I invite Mary Cronk to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Mary Cronk, and I live at 600 Hickory Mill Lane. I'm requesting that the city does not adopt the updated Trails Blueprint map this evening. While the Trails Blueprint map has been shared with council and feedback has been gathered from MTAC, people whose properties would be impacted by the updated map have not been notified and asked for their feedback, nor has the new trail map been vetted with Milton residents. There are a lot of pink lines on this map, which indicates a lot of new trails. I'm concerned that Milton residents have not been given an opportunity to learn about these final new trail updates and give their feedback, which could lead to issues down the road for the city. I suggest a further step is necessary and prudent before council makes a decision on implementing the revised map. I request that the city hold several well-publicized public meetings or open houses, like the one held last month for the green print, which was very good, to discuss the updated trails map, including notifications specifically being sent to residents whose properties could be impacted. Based on the feedback from these open houses or meetings, the maps could be redrawn if necessary to reflect what the residents want. Thank you for your time and for your consideration of my request to deny the adoption of the new trails map this evening to allow for some more public input.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, I invite Doug McCurry to the podium.
Like a broken record, but my name is Doug McCurry, and my wife and I live at 830 Hickory Flat Road in a farmhouse that's belonged to my grandparents and on property that's been my family for over 100 years. We live west of and directly adjacent to 7 Acre Restaurant. Recently, we were made aware by a concerned neighbor of the finalization of the trail connectivity project and that it could potentially affect our properties. On top of those concerns about the potential path of the trails, the fact that there has been no official city notice of the point of finalization of the plan adds to those concerns. As noted, we were recently made aware of the definitive discussion about building the proposed trails down the north side of Hickory Flat Road, thus affecting the 7 Acres parking lot, our personal loss of several large trees, including mature oak, 200-year-old plus elm trees, plus mature Japanese maples, And you've already heard from Mr. Garrett about the potential loss of 250-year-old oak specimens there in his yard. In addition to the loss of these trees and property frontages, several fences, gates, and mailboxes will also have to be relocated and reinstalled. A cursory view of Hickory Flat Road, from the roundabout west to the park entrance shows the north side to be a problematic and non-cost-effective option. While not trying to be not in my front yard type neighbor, the south side of the road shows itself to be the most accessible route, such as a trail extension, even if it ever is deemed necessary and desirable for Hickory Flat Road. A partial sidewalk down to the roundabout and south to 372 is already in existence. There is vacant roadside to support the trail and a minimal number of obstructions overall. While the park entrance via the fire station fronts Hickory Flat Road, heavy traffic volumes, multiple times a day, regular call-outs of fire, EMTs, and the police multiple times a day begs the question of Hickory Flat Road, is this the safest and most sensible option for such a multi-use trail? While recognizing the energy and effort that went into developing this iteration of the trail study, it would seem before an effort to finalize its findings that we see first how much use the trail may generate throughout its expanse. And additionally, more community meetings would indicate how much use a trail for walking or traversing along such a busy thoroughfare will generate. Thank you for your time. And my neighbor, Curtis Mills, was unable to be here tonight. And I guess he could have emailed something in, but he asked that my comments also reflect those of his at this point in time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, I invite Julie Zonner Bailey to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Julie Zonner Bailey, and I live at 255 Hickory Flat Road, Milton, Georgia. I'm here tonight to address again my concern with sidewalks or multi-use trails being constructed down Hickory Flat Road as reflected on the proposed Milton Trail Blueprint map. I addressed this concern with you during public comments recently in October, having no idea that a revised Milton Trail Blueprint map was due to be before you for a vote this evening. No idea. It appears many folks were surprised to see a final trail and sidewalk blueprint map come in before council tonight, given there have been no public meetings to address this map with the public at large. None. While there may have been meetings with the Milton Trail Committee, those are not broadly advertised public meetings for the purpose of gaining input about the public and their input regarding a community-wide trail and sidewalk map for future projects. The February survey that was indicated earlier also was not widely known about. I certainly didn't receive it, I didn't respond to it, and I certainly would have had it been more broadly advertised. I do not believe that Hickory Flat Road should have sidewalks or multi-use trails down the side of the road, regardless of whether that's the north side or the south side. This is one of the more rural roads, and neither sidewalks of concrete nor multi-use trails are in keeping with this roadway, nor is the removal of trees to build sidewalks and multi-use trails in keeping with a rural roadway. There also is a huge public safety issue given Fire Station 43 has emergency vehicles entering Hickory Flat Road. This is another reason that sidewalks and multi-use trails, regardless of what side of the road, should not be located on Hickory Flat Road. While I'm all about connectivity to the Birmingham Park, we do not need nor want a concrete sidewalk on Hickory Flat Road, which is one of our more rural areas. More concrete is not in concert with rural Milton. Historically, the connectivity, as outlined in the Birmingham Master Plan, was going to connect via the Birmingham Crossroads at the Baby Public Shopping Center across the street from the Birmingham Parkland that fronts on Birmingham Highway. This is not reflected. It's not reflected at all on the proposed Milton Trail blueprint map, but it should be. This map should not be approved until other of these considerations have been included. This was actually discussed during the November 13th MTAC meeting, but none of those changes are reflected on the Milton Trail blueprint map before you tonight. The map is not ready to be approved. More changes are needed, and public engagement and input is certainly needed. Never was there going to be a concrete sidewalk down Hickory Flat Road. Please ensure that no concrete nor any asphalt sidewalks or multi-use trails along Hickory Flat Road come to pass. Consider, please, other options for walkability and connectivity. I'm requesting 3 specific things this evening. 1, that sidewalks and multi-use trails be removed from Hickory Flat Road on this proposed or any Milton Trail blueprint map. Number 2, that no vote take place tonight unless it is to remove Hickory Flat Road from consideration for sidewalks or multi-use trails. And 3, that council please provide staff and the consultants with the specific direction of needing to schedule broadly advertised public meetings to garner input from citizens before a map is updated and voted upon. The audio from the Trails Committee meeting of November 13th, which was not available until today. We couldn't even listen to the audio of the meeting until today. That raises questions about how anyone has found out about this project or the trail map. It has not been publicly advertised, and it really needs to be. We owe the public that much. No, not one on the committee was aware of how the public was being informed. This was heard in the audio today. People were asking Mr. Garrett how he found out about it. The members of
1
MTAC,
minute.
who were all well-intentioned, great, hardworking volunteers, they didn't know what sort of public outreach there had been. The very committee that's recommending a trail map didn't know what public outreach we had had. Concrete sidewalks and multi-use trails along Hickory Flat Road are not appropriate for this roadway, and broad public input and awareness is indeed needed before any vote on this proposed map takes place. Property owners who would be directly impacted, not only along Hickory Flat, but with all of the new trails or sidewalk extensions, deserve to be notified and deserve to have an opportunity to have voice in this process before you approve a map. We don't need to be in a rush, but we do need to secure public input and ensure that all people have an opportunity to bring their thoughts and considerations forward. Thank you all for your service. I do greatly appreciate it, and I appreciate your careful consideration of these comments and those of others this evening and others who didn't even know to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, the final public comment is one that was emailed to be read into the record. It's Tim Enlow, 13075 Bethany Road, regarding this evening's proposed approval of the future trail plan. The protocol to date regarding such a vision has been incredibly self-righteous and biased. Before any idea being suggested is released to the public for consideration, property owners who could be affected by such should be consulted and met with at their homes prior. While trails have become very popular across the country over the course of the past decade, what many who advocate for such forget is that typically eminent domain is required to make such a reality, while diminishing innocent taxpayers' most valuable asset dramatically. Indeed, the world yearns for simple objectivity. I have witnessed firsthand the evils of eminent domain locally in 2005. I never want to witness ever such again. With the dying equestrian community rapidly disappearing, and considering I own one of the few horse farms left, a trail could have a dramatic negative effect on the lifestyle to which my family purchased into over 47 years ago in 1978. Such would also add to the long list of zero protections for our lifestyle, approved vandalism, and reasons purchased, in addition to countless state of federal laws violated by those given power locally. Too often, councils, current and past, have bent over backwards for the subdivision demographic while refusing to give any type of voice to the open road neighborhood residents. It is my hope that this plea wakes people up to the need that all residents, regardless of lifestyle chosen, be treated equally across the board with respect. Mayor Pro Tem, that does conclude public comment for agenda item number 25293.
Is there any council discussion?
Quite a bit.
I have a couple questions. Yeah, so what has been the communication to the public, and what should have been maybe the communication?
I'm not going to say what should have been until I find out what has been. And I think I have Rob and Greg here who could probably speak to that. That's not an area we usually fall short in.
No.
Well, I mean, yeah, it would.
So from the presentation perspective, as I said, the summary, the survey back in February 2025, that MTech asked us to reach out to the public through communications, through social media, through newsletter, to show the recommendations to our public and receive responses to 9 to 10 questions in that survey. Those answers were summarized for you in June. I do not remember whether we provided you the raw data so you could see every single response and every single answer, but that Excel sheet is freely available to anyone who'd like to see it.
Are the meetings publicly noticed?
All of our MTech meetings are advertised on the calendar the same way a planning commission meeting or a DRB meeting is published. Recently, in the past year, we have gone to the point where we are now live streaming, recording them, and showing audio and video afterwards. That wasn't always the case. It's a recent development. We also actually had as one resident pointed out in public comment, we had an IT issue with our most recent meeting that was just corrected today. I was notified this morning that the audio wasn't working, and we, as quickly as possible, fixed that so that the link showing video and audio is correct as of this afternoon.
And Greg, from a sharing on social media standpoint, do you share the MTAC meetings similar to how you would the others?
Yes, except, well, to what extent they have agendas. So we do previews of meetings, and when there's substantive agendas, usually the guidance has been when there's only one topic to talk about, the blueprint. That kind of speaks for itself. I will say that the survey, in addition to that, that was released by email, website, had a Facebook post that had 38 comments and multiple shares and things like that as well. So,
Quick question. For the survey that went out in February of this year, you said you had 140 responses. Who would receive that survey? Would they have to be a subscriber to the city newsletter, or would they have to be on social media to see that? Or did that go to like a radius of homes where that would receive maybe the most impact from these trails?
So Greg will correct me if I'm wrong. There was no targeted outreach to a specific area. It was limited to our normal means of communication, which is social media and our newsletter.
yeah, I don't think we had that. I didn't have that information.
Correct.
You'd have to be a subscriber to the newsletter to get it.
That's correct.
Or follow on social media, or get our website, or check the newsletter, or so like those 5 different
Yeah,
things.
I'm just asking because a lot of the folks that are here this evening may not be looking on social media or may not be looking on the calendar on the city website just to see if there's a meeting coming up
That's the great
about a
majority.
topic that maybe they weren't even aware was happening. So my question is, when something like this typically affects homes in a certain radius, I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes don't we send out a letter to that specific address to let them know that something was happening?
The impacts are citywide. There would be thousands of notices going out, and what you would see in relation to some of the hearings that fall under the ZBA, you don't have that with the same type of notifications. This would, if you look at the pink lines, perhaps the pink lines would be hundreds, not thousands, but all of the lines, and I've heard comments on some of the other lines as well. It would be a large number.
Okay.
I think part of the concern is if someone follows it, or if somebody is subscribing to the email or what have you, the folks that are interested in trails and want trails, they're going to see trails and they go, oh yeah, I'm going to go to that. And the people who may be impacted aren't necessarily looking for that. They have no idea. And if it's not something sent to their home, they don't even know to be tracking or to be looking for that. And so we're only hearing the voice of the folks that go, heck yeah, I want that, and not those who may be in jeopardy of being impacted by it.
So would you like us to redo this and send out letters to everybody that's in
My concern is that maybe we've only heard from those who want them and not from those who don't.
Well, just such a process problem,
Mm-hmm.
because I can appreciate that it's a wish list. But with every vote, you feel like concrete all over this city or some sort of a trail changes everything. I mean, I've said this from the beginning, and I have a problem that, like, the Trails Committee, okay, this is the wish list and it's been reviewed and other groups have looked at it too. But everybody has a wish list about somebody else crossing somebody else's property, okay, until it's your own. And I feel like if the Trails Committee is going to take the lead, which they should, on where these things go, they should have an abundance of information, feedback from people who are amenable to their ideas and their plans. I mean, by the time it gets to us, staff is already thinking it's a foregone conclusion and we're going to maybe budget this, and then maybe people come in and it's just, I try to get in the groove of how all municipalities do it, and they do it this way. But this one is such that I can't expect the population to stay up on these things. Like when you talk about a share, like 38 shares, well, that's benign. That's nothing. It doesn't mean that anybody is really awake.
Perhaps I could bring the Trails Committee in. I think maybe I'm sensing potentially this is our second issue with trails since I've been in the seat. The first one, probably I think back in 2017. Everybody wants trails. It's always our top ask.
Yeah.
But then when we go to start executing, and this is not executing by any.
Right. No, I understand
I mean,
that, which
this
is
is
why I'm
pure
trying
planning.
to tread lightly, but it's
But
going to roll.
maybe we should bring the committee in on a work session and make sure that everybody is aligned, or they're aligned with you as elected officials, as to what your desires are, what your vision is for the trails in this city. So this way, when they're doing their work, we can ensure that they're doing it with your vision in mind.
Yeah, and in their defense, I mean, I was on DRB for years, and so something comes in front of us and we say, is there any opposition? And if the answer is no, we're like, well, shoot, everyone must be for it. Right. And so, but the difference is in DRB, and granted, it's normally a smaller population. If somebody's looking to do something on a property, there might be 8 properties around it affected. And so they all know about it. And so they come and either they're for it or they're against it. And in this case, trails are out there and people go, yeah, I want trails. Well, to Carol's point, they may want them on someone else's property, but people who want trails, but the greater population may not even know it's on their radar.
Well, I think it brings to point though, that if you're going to do that type of thing, you've got to make sure trails and the committee has the type of exposure that planning commission gets and the BZA. You can't keep them over here real quiet and then expect everybody to know about everything that's going on. I mean, if we're going to do that as a council, we need to raise their level so more people participate.
They're working in an echo chamber where all they're hearing is people want trails.
Exactly. So, but here's the thing. Okay, concrete is a bad word, but got to make it concrete in the sense that if the group is interested in a number of trails, then identify what that first layer might be. And let's work within that of, okay, let's go to those people and say, this is within our 5-year plan. Are you good with this?
That's our next step.
Okay, well, because
We're at the 30,000 foot level today.
I know, but it's frightening.
Understood that, and I'm not
Help anybody. It's just completely frightening. It's such a foregone conclusion. Everybody should be concerned, so.
But that's not the intent of
I
this
understand.
planning exercise. It's the furthest thing, and I don't mean to necessarily contradict your statement, but it's the furthest thing from a foregone conclusion.
Right. I'm totally with you on that. But we all know if we can even, no offense to y'all, because you're doing your job in so many ways, but if we can even justify that there's been public outreach and 30 people over here and 48 over here, when we're talking about all this stuff, I mean, we would need massive public outreach for us to feel good about this. So maybe we need to chop it down into small little bites, get that public outreach and move in these baby steps rather than have this kind of overall thing where we need to light up the whole city.
Can I ask, so on number 11, on our Q&A for the blueprint, it says, how will the public be involved going forward? So if we had approved this tonight, then moving forward, the public would be involved to approve the trails that we would
Yeah,
put
they
in
would
place.
come up and then you would go through a whole public. But
If I understand, part of what you're saying is, why go through that effort if you know a section of it is never going to really?
well, I want the trails folks to get the stronger feedback, more complete, because they're passing it on. This is the wish list. But I think the intel and whether it should pass from them to us or to others, they need a lot of feedback to say, ooh, people don't want this, or yeah, they're good with this. And don't you think we ought to move it up sooner?
Oh, why don't you let us take a look and see?
Let's do
We
that.
break the mold all the time. It's why we win all these awards. But
Okay.
maybe there's a
Mold is being
maybe there's a
broken.
new direction we could go with public notification that that could satisfy the requirements, and that we always like delivering on things like that. Why don't you let us take another look?
Well, because the other part of that is you don't know how many people are really in favor of it as well.
Right.
I mean, there could be a lot of citizens that really want a good trail system.
Well,
And now this may not be
Right.
exactly it, but I think there's an awful lot of people that do want trails too.
Well, and
So we got to figure that out.
I think we need to make a big distinction between trails and sidewalks. Okay, because people are thinking a trail is, oh, I'm going to go out and get exercise, I'm going to ride my bike and do this. And then there are people who just want sidewalks.
If I can help clarify
Please.
that, and one point that's been brought up multiple times, MTAC's desire to update this map is not to put concrete everywhere in the city. In fact, it's close to the exact opposite. We have spent a lot of time in Trails Committee talking about material types. The sentiment and the direction we're thinking right now that would be subject to future discussion on a project-by-project basis is limiting concrete to the form-based code areas and looking at gravel and asphalt everywhere else in the city. So that we're not talking about 10-foot wide concrete trails on Hickory Flat Road at all.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, let's pick that up at another time, because then we talk about durability and lifespan and cost and replenishing and all that stuff. So there are issues all the way around. So one person who called me today who's not in the HOA made an interesting point and said, if we're going to have where there is not now sidewalks and the street is not very walkable, said, we're going to have to put up a fence. We're going to have to put up a gate, because now we're inviting a whole bunch of people to walk by, and we've never had that before. And there are things that happen when you start inviting people to just start walking everywhere, which is not anything I'd ever even thought about, but it's something to take into consideration, which I can see their point.
I agree. There's going to be segments on that map that are supported, and there are going to be segments on that
Right.
map that aren't supported.
It was an interesting thought. All right, we've heard enough from me. What do you want to do? Anybody? What do you want to do? How do we, Mr. Krokoff, how do we take these comments and then turn it back over to you all?
You have two items on this tonight. One is the adoption of the new trail plan. The other one is moving it from ordinance to resolution. Am I correct? Which one is this?
Right now, we're on the unfinished.
So this would be the one.
This item
adopting
would strike through the existing map and set us up to adopt a new map via resolution.
And the reason that you would be adopting a new one under resolution is just it wouldn't change the process here, except for perhaps the first read. But the purpose of moving it from an ordinance to a resolution is for ease of change if you wanted to make changes. So that dovetails a little bit with what we're talking about tonight. But I guess it depends on which way the council wants to go. If you want us to bring this back to MTAC and look at and look at getting more input, we can. We will, I should say. I've gotten that direction.
Yeah.
This map tonight is, by not voting on the map tonight, and this is only my interpretation, so take it for what it's worth. I think it would be symbolic in stating that you want more input, but in practice, it's not going to change much because this is only a plan, and you'll be changing the plan as we drill down further on it.
So there'd be no point in voting on it.
I don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah, I just think we need to, I think the Trails Committee might be surprised at the very limited number of people who put input in it. They might also be surprised that it goes from them, it comes to us, it's a working document for the future. And I can't stand in our situation when complete public input is at the outrage level.
Well, the problem is like you said, or someone said earlier, people are interested only when they're interested. Otherwise, it's noise going through their emails and their social media.
And I'm okay with it if it's symbolic that garners more involvement from the community, like as a general practice. I don't see anything wrong with getting people more involved.
But if you had a plan of the first tranche and you did outreach and you asked for outreach from those people, then that makes more sense.
I would recommend you withdraw both.
Let's do it. I heard that, Council. Appreciate that. Okay.
Ken would recommend you withdraw both.
You ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion, we withdraw both items number 25-293 and let's see, down here, number 25-305.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Kirkley and a second from Councilmember Veerhoff. Please vote. That is unanimous.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Council, do we need to call the other one into record, or can that apply?
Don't.
Okay.
The council's taking care of it. I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Moving on to new business. Will the city clerk please sound the item?
Mayor, that new business item is consideration of a final plat. The name of the development is Alara at Bethany. It's off of Bethany Bend. It's land lot 972, District 2, Section 1. It's a final plat of 13 single-family lots with a total of 3.133 acres and a density of 4.15 units per acre. It is agenda item number 25304. Our Land Development Administrator, Sandra DeWitt.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. So I am here to present to you tonight for consideration the final plat for Alara at Bethany. This new subdivision development is located in the southeast corner of Milton. You will see it is located along Bethany Bend Road, in between Spring Valley and Hidden Forest subdivisions, and just north of Milton Montessori School. Here is a layout of the subdivision. This is approximately 3.133 acres. Total number of lots is 13 single-family lots. The zoning is R5A, which is a rezoning case from 2023, and is located in the State Route 9 Overlay District. The detention in the area is underground. There is a common area that is approximately 1.348 acres. Parking spaces available are 52 parking spaces in garage and driveways, and 5 internal parking spaces that are located in the common area. Here are some pictures of the subdivision development. The one on the left is one of the alleys that will be going behind the homes. And then on the right is the entrance coming off Bethany Bend. So here is a copy of the final plat that was submitted. Staff has reviewed this and found that it is complete
And at this time, I can answer any questions for you. And also the applicant is here as well, if you have any questions for the applicant.
Are there any public comments on this?
There are none, sir.
Okay. Is there any council discussion?
There a tree component, or did I miss something?
Well,
You're
for
not-
the final plat, we're looking at just the property lines of the new subdivision. The tree component was handled during the LDP process,
Okay.
so they met all the requirements through the LDP. But I know, I'm not here as the arborist tonight.
It's like she doesn't know anything
I know
about
that's
trees.
confusing.
You look a lot like her.
I know, right?
All right.
Any other discussion?
I have no questions.
Do we have a motion and a second?
I make a motion to approve agenda item number 25-304.
Have a second?
Second.
We have a motion
Thank
from
you.
Councilmember Henny and a second from Councilmember Veerhoff. Please vote. That passes unanimously. We have handled the second item.
I think it's time to say goodnight.
I think if there is, are there any council reports?
I wish I had one just to delay Carol right now, but I do not.
I think I've spoken enough tonight.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Mayor Pro Tem, can I ask you to, for you all to do this electronically?
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
yes.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Henning and a second from Councilmember Cookerly. Please vote. We are adjourned.